Fast Five, brought to you in partnership with the A&M Consumer and Retail Group, Avalara, Williot, EGW, and Sezzle. Ranked in the top 10% of all podcasts globally and currently ranked the #1 podcast in all of retail by FeedSpot. The Retail Fast Five is the podcast that we hope makes you feel a little smarter, but most importantly, a little happier each week too. Today is January 31st, 2024, the last day of dry January. I'm your host, Ann Mezzenga.
And I'm Chris Walton.
And we're here once again to discuss the most important headlines from the past week that highlight how the physical, digital, and human elements of retail are coming together to shape the future. Chris, we didn't do dry January,
Ann.
but we
do. I
Well,
didn't do dry January. No, you're right.
No.
I didn't even realize that dry January was upon me, and I had no idea. I can't believe it's almost February too. Like
now
I
you
had
got to
that
start. Now you got to start
night.
hitting the bottle again. Chris, we do, however, have an all-star guest today on the podcast who I know you and I are so excited about. Joining us for a very special version of the OmniTalk Retail Fast Five is none other than Shoptalk's very own VP of Original Content and Strategy, Ben Miller. Ben, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Anne. Hi, Chris. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you. Thank you. Looking forward to this.
So are we, my friend. Oh my gosh. When we started talking about doing this, I got so giddy. I was like giddy as a schoolgirl. Like I just couldn't wait to get this going because, you know, a lot of respect for you and what you do at Shoptalk, and can't wait to get your thoughts as a guest host on today's show.
Yeah, Ben.
Thanks, Chris.
I mean, you are. We joke like you're our European correspondent. Like I feel like you always are hitting all of the great stores that we talk about often on this show and giving us that up close and personal look. And so, I like Chris said, to just echo what he said. I think there's so much that we're excited to talk to you about to get your perspective on in today's show.
No pressure though, Ben. No pressure at all. No pressure.
None at all.
Just that we're expecting incredibly big things from you for the next 30 minutes and for our audience. So no pressure though.
Oh my God, no pressure. Okay, right. I'll do my best to underwhelm.
Yeah. Ben, come on now. So for those people who aren't familiar with you though, Ben, if you could just give a brief background on you and your new congratulations, your promotion, your new role at Shoptalk.
Thank you. So my role at Shoptalk, I'm VP of what we call our original content program. So that's our program of research, insights, the proprietary content that we as a Shoptalk team bring to the show. We're always trying to bring new insights, new information to our guests, and whether that is work that we do or work that we do in close partnership with our fantastic community of research partners and insight partners. I have the privilege of coordinating that work and bringing it to the show. Background, 25 years in retail, originally worked as a retailer, so did commercial, marketing and investor relation roles in the grocery industry. I worked for the Safeway company here in the UK. And then I spent a long time agency side, consultancy, insights, mainly focused on grocery. Spent a long time working on the US grocery industry. So that's very much my second home. And now kind of really enjoying working across all retail at Shoptalk.
Yeah, that's why we're excited to have you, because you're an operator by your background. It's in your blood. You understand retail, and particularly grocery retail, which is always a sweet spot of ours. So, all right, and I said before, I'm super excited to get on with this show, but do we have any upcoming content that we want to tell our listeners about first?
We always do, Chris. We've always got content.
If we're doing our jobs, we do. You're right, Ann. That's a really good point. Yes.
We're the VP of original content for OmniTalk. Nothing like Shoptalk's level, but for OmniTalk, yes, we do have some great content. Make sure, if you didn't catch our LinkedIn live session yesterday with Ethan Chernovsky of Placer AI on the 5 big questions on retailers' minds to start 2024. You can find that discussion in full, get the whole session on omnitalk.blog or on our YouTube channel. And then next, we have another LinkedIn Live event coming up in February. We're bringing back one of our all-time most popular guests. We have Kim Beaudry, who will be joining us once again in a session we're calling Bigger and Smaller ? How the need for speed is impacting retail supply chains. And you can register for that now. Just go to our LinkedIn page on OmniTalk Retail, head to the upcoming events section and you can sign up right there. She's always bringing us so much knowledge in how retailers are thinking about what to do with back of house, how to make fulfillment more efficient. So
yes,
you're not
yes.
going
And
to want to miss it.
I'm particularly excited about that title, bigger and smaller. It's meant to be catchy. It's meant to say, how does that happen, Ann? How can a supply chain become both bigger and smaller? And for whom? That's what we're going to talk about with her. So I'm pumped. I'm excited. Should we get to this week's headlines?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. But of course, before we do, we've got Ben here today. So we have to say a little something about Shop Talk. I, for one, Ann, I can't wait for Shop Talk. I can't wait to be back there in March because we know exactly what it means to be there, everyone. Here's what I think. I took some time to think about this, Ann. Here's what I think.
You journaled about Shop
I did.
Talk
I
and what
journaled.
it
I
was?
chronicled.
Okay.
I chronicled my thoughts, Ann. And
Let's
Ben.
hear it. Let's hear it.
Here's what I think being at Shop Talk says about you as a person. Okay. Are you ready for this? All right.
This is like a Cosmo article.
Right. Yeah. Hey, we go above and beyond. We go above and beyond here. Number one, it says you're a forward thinker. It says you're eager to engage with over 230 speakers handpicked for their cutting edge leadership. You can rub elbows with people like Gina Boswell, the Bath and Body Works CEO, Tom Kingsbury of Kohl's. The Kohl's CEO is going to be there. Can't wait to see that. And Tony Spring, the incoming Macy's CEO, is going to be there too. So, all right. Number two, it says you're well connected or that you want to be because you can meet with over 10,000 of the most important people in retail. You can join confirmed VP and C-suite attendees from Gucci, Foot Locker, Burberry, Hasbro, Harley Davidson, Gymshark, Mattel, Stanley 1913, Scotts Miracle-Gro, Staples, Target, and tons more. Was that enough for you, Ann? I mean, I tried to list out as many as I could that sounded cool.
There's quite a cornucopia of retailers in that mix. I like it.
Yeah, and brands too. Retailers and brands.
And brands.
Three. It makes you part of the global conversation, participating in your share of more than 75,000 impactful meetings through their meetup program and exploring the newest offerings from 900 plus tech companies. That's important. But finally, the best part about what Shop Talk says about you is that retailers and brands, you can still qualify for a free VIP ticket, but you need to get in now. They're closing applications next Friday, February 9th. So don't delay. Prices for paid tickets will go up soon. So retailers and brands can use code OMNITALK. That's OMNITALK to save an extra 10% off current rates. Just head to shoptalk.com and book your ticket today. All right. In today's Fast Five, we've got news on Walmart promoting that its store managers may soon make over $400,000 per year. Holy cow.
Woot.
Some absolutely astonishing data on self-checkout, Instacart's plans to gamify shopping, and TikTok trialing the making of all posts on its platform Shoppable. And by all, and I mean every single one. But we begin today with a rash of layoff news. And
yes, headline number one, REI, eBay, John Lewis, and Levi's, among several others, all announced layoffs this week, joining the ranks of Macy's and Wayfair from the week before. According to CNBC, eBay plans to cut 9% of its staff, which equates to about 1,000 full-time jobs. And Levi's says that it too will cut 10 to 15% of its global corporate workforce. REI also plans to cut 357 of its employees, according to Fox Business. And finally, according to Draper's, John Lewis may cut as many as 11,000 of its total 76,000 member workforce. Whoa, that is a lot.
Yeah.
Ben, I'm going to go to you first here on this one. What do you think of these announcements first? And what, if anything, do you think that it says might be on the minds of your average corporate retail executive right now?
Yeah, man. I mean, look, redundancy stories are always tough.
Yeah.
You kind of run through numbers like that. They're big numbers, but each one of them is a livelihood. Out of redundancies, you always get great stories, people that are able to make that change that they wanted to make, sometimes with a bit of money in their pockets, but not everyone. So look, firstly, wish everybody involved best of luck finding the next role and making forward. And just as kind of every number has got an individual story behind it, each of the retailers, I think, has got a different story. So what I guess what I wanted to do is maybe just dive a little bit more into one of them, and probably one that I've got a bit of knowledge around, which is John Lewis.
Yeah.
Look, that's a big old number. I think firstly, in the detail, it's going to be a gradual reduction. So this is a 5-year reduction that we're going to see in terms of headcount. So there'll be some redundancy, and there'll be some sort of just not replacing departing staff. So probably a slightly longer time scale than the eBay announcement, for example. But you're still talking 10 to 15% of the workforce. I think you've got to put it in context of John Lewis' performance. This is the former bellwether of the British High Street, that made $300 million loss last year, and this loss is widening. And in an inflationary environment, the business top line sales went down 2% last year. So, and I think that starts to paint the picture, especially when you compare it to, let's say, Marks and Spencer's. So, I know we've chatted about Marks and Spencer's before. That I kind of emailed you guys and said they should be your Retail of the Year last year, because
you did
absolutely smashing it.
You did.
So really similar proposition, high street department stores and food proposition, similar to John Lewis Partnership. They grew turnover 10% last year. $600 million of EBITDA. So it's not a structural issue for John Lewis. There is a competitor with a really similar proposition doing really, really well. So I think you've got to look at what's going on in that business. And this is where I give kudos to Neil Saunders. He's already been out on LinkedIn and already done some math where he's kind of been comparing sales per employee between M&S and John Lewis. And the average, it's very crude, and he accepts that, but the average M&S employee is delivering 15% more revenue than the average John Lewis employee. I didn't compare that to Target. The average Target employee delivers 33% more revenue than the M&S employee, than a John Lewis employee. So I think you can definitely draw the case that John Lewis was potentially overstaffed. Horrible word to use, but the numbers would seem to back that up. There is this, I don't know, normalization. There was a bit of overhiring across the whole industry during COVID, so we've seen a little bit of that potentially indexing out. I think ultimately for John Lewis, there's leadership change coming. There's a new chair coming in. There's already a new department store boss coming in. People I speak to in the business talk positively about some of the new hires. There's a bit of momentum maybe coming back to the department store business. So I think there are green shoots in that. But the key question, what should be on the mind of retail executives, you've got to grow the top line. Because if you're not growing the top line, this is where you get to. And it's really hard to turn it around when you're making cuts of this scale.
Right. And I mean, unfortunately, cutting jobs is the quickest way to do that. Cutting staff is the best way to quickly improve the bottom line. So I think you're on the right track, and Neil as well too. Chris, I'm curious from your perspective. I mean, you were an executive at Target. Like, this is something that you and I both have had to go through. What are your thoughts about these announcements?
Yeah, I think I'll echo what Ben was saying too. The other part of that John Lewis story is, like, I can remember being in London in 2013 and thinking John Lewis was the best omnichannel retailer bar none. And it's amazing to see how far, that reputation has slipped, or how actually in a lot of ways, how much the rest of the industry has met those expectations and then exceeded what they were doing too, is the other point of this. But I think what the announcements in totality say probably three things to me. And one, that there's potentially still a lag effect on all of this on the economy, and we don't know what that impact is yet, but it there could still be something coming. So that's something we got to watch out for as a retail industry. The second thing it tells me is it's going to have an impact on retail innovation and IT investment. You have to think budgets are going to stay very tight this year, even though they're trying to grow the top line. They're taking these measures or these steps to, improve the bottom line as well. But you have to think those budgets are going to stay tight. And so that brings me to the third point, which is, it was a show me the money year last year for IT investments. It's still going to be a show me the money year for IT investments, because they're going to have to meet the ROI hurdle. So that tells me too, if you're a corporate retail employee and you're working on a metaverse project or a Roblox project or something like that, you better get your resume ready, because, you need at least to be thinking about it, because you're probably not in that safe a position as these executives start to reallocate their resources appropriately to go after what they need to keep the business thriving.
Yeah, I think those are great points, Chris. I think the only thing that I would throw in to close us out is, what as retail executives making these decisions, like we said, it's the quickest way to improve the overall P&L. But I think what you need to be considering here is that you are dealing with human beings and livelihoods and families too. And while it makes the bottom line better, what impact are you having on the people that are left behind, and what kind of work are you getting out of those teams when you're trying to work leaner, you're trying to be more agile? And like the Wayfair executive a couple of weeks ago, or the CEO was saying, like, we need you to work harder, we need you to put more into work. Like, are you going to get that from somebody who's constantly worried about the next round of layoffs and whether or not they're making that cut? So I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind for these executives as they're thinking through who's going, who's staying, and how many rounds of these we're going to do each, few months, like it's been.
Yeah, that's the part B of this story. When Ben said like John Lewis is kind of stage gating their layoffs too, similar to Wayfair. That's just a really interesting approach, which, as you talked to A&M last week on the show, they do not advise that approach at all from their experience. Right. So yeah, it's fascinating to watch to see if maybe that starts to become the norm too. Who knows? All right, headline number 2, Walmart store managers could soon be making more than $400,000 a year. According to the Financial Post, starting in April, all United States store managers will receive as much as $20,000 in Walmart stock every year. As the world's largest retailer seeks to attract and retain staff, the amount of stock grants will vary by store format, with those overseeing smaller outlets eligible for less. Stock grants are the company's latest effort to boost compensation for managers. Walmart said recently that the average store manager's salary will also increase to $128,000 from $117,000, and that managers can now receive as much as 200% of their base salary in bonuses if targets are met. It should also be noted that about 75% of Walmart's managers start as hourly employees, a statistic I did not know, and on average take about 5 years to land a management role, which is consistent with what I've seen in the industry too. And do you see this? I'm curious, do you see this as PR gloss, or is this something more substantive?
I sure hope it's not just PR gloss. I absolutely love this. And it's not because John Furner's mug was the reference image on this story. And, we all know that he grew up through the ranks, like you were just talking about in the story, to take his current role. I think that what I love about this the most is that it shows investment from Walmart or, other retailers who are doing this in the people who are mission critical for the business to continue to succeed. I think if we look at how, where salaries are being distributed, where benefits are being distributed. I mean, Chris, this goes back to like when we were working on Store of the Future, and it was simple things like the store managers don't get the amenities in the bathroom that you have at a headquarters. Like all these things that the store employees who are making the job, the business function day in and day out do not have access to. I think it's high time that they're compensated for the work that they're doing to make all those headquarters jobs a possibility. And the last thing I'd say is, like we were talking about in the last story, there's a lot of layers in these legacy retail organizations that I would argue are not all doing the business of as big a service as these store managers are. And so I think when you look at applying some of those high paid right out of college salaries to, compensating a store manager who's working up the ranks and giving them incentive to work harder, I think that's the part of this that I think is just a home run for Walmart. And I'm so thrilled that they're able to start seeing the fruits of their labor.
So you like this. You really are optimistic about this. Yes. That's the good thing. I want to expand upon that point too, but I want to turn it over to Ben here. Ben, you're former investor relations guy. Like, what do you think about this? You know how to look at these types of announcements.
I think it's really great that we are taking the time just to kind of actually step back and question the announcement. We were talking about this in the office yesterday. Walmart on a roll at the moment.
Oh my God, yeah.
They've got amazing leadership. So when you're on a roll, you kind of look at things with a positive gloss. So actually just go back and say, you know what, actually, let's think about this. But having done that, it's hard not to love it, isn't it? So I guess there's a couple of things. Number one is, actually, what's the point of a remuneration package? Is to attract, reward, and retain.
Right.
Number one, attract. This is Walmart shouting, we really value our store managers, as Anne was saying. That's a great attraction message.
Yep.
Number two, I think this is where stepping back into what's the actual role of a Walmart store manager? In many communities, the Walmart store manager will be the biggest employer and run the biggest business in that community. And it's sort of recognized as that level of responsibility. And I'd go even further because Walmart are layering more responsibility onto that. The last couple of weeks, Anne, I've heard you talk about Walmart as in the store being like the town square. They've talked about the healthcare services that appear. Well, that's an even greater level of responsibility that the store manager is bringing to that community. So I think that Walmart saying we are going to reward that effort and then retain. Retail is still a hard industry. We did some research at Shoptalk last year that looked at retention rates, and retail workers are 40% more likely than the national average to quit their jobs, or to say that they want to quit their jobs. And the gap between the quit rate of retail and the rest of the economy is actually widening. So anything that can help retain great talent, and what better way to drive retention than having some equity? The spirit of ownership that I've heard John Furner talk about before. Net, it's hard not to like it.
Running the store like a business. You're I love it.
Yeah, those are all really good points. The other point I could make to this end, because you're right. Walmart's on a winning streak here, but you could, and Walmart might not like me say this, although I think they will. You could actually make the argument that they're still not getting paid enough. If you think about it, like 80 to 90% of your volume is still coming through your stores.
Yes.
So back to your point, Anne. So are you better off paying someone in marketing that is sitting behind in a cubicle $100,000, or splitting that salary out to pay your store employees?
Why are you gonna call my marketing people out?
Well, it could be anything.
I'm
but
teasing.
But you know what I mean? Or the engineer that's working on the metaverse, right? Like, and we deliberately put this story after the first headline because that's an important question. Is like, okay, you can lay people off, but how are you reallocating your payroll spend in the process of doing that? Is it a straight cut, or will there be a strategic allocation to improve your stores too? Because we've seen when the stores don't have the staff, your retail operations struggles, and Walmart's been ahead of the curve on that. So my hunch is that people are not thinking about this to the degree that Walmart is. And then the last point I'd make, $400,000. That is just a stark number that's going to stick in people's head. Great marketing move. And 5 years from starting your career at Walmart, or 5 years out of college, because they also hire people out of college, you make $400,000 5 years out of college, you're feeling like a boss. That is outstanding if you can ride the tailwind of great Walmart results and benefit from that.
Yeah. And Chris, I think the last thing too that we can punch into here is like all of the tech that Ben was talking about, that you've been talking about, that we've been talking about on the show, that they're about to roll out in Walmart. All of that is dependent on adoption and promotion and championing from the store manager to the rest of the staff. So if you want all these investments to roll out that you've made in the last year, you have to have somebody in that role who's dedicated, who's motivated to making sure that that store executes on it.
Yeah, the qualifications to be a store manager are so much higher than they used to be. And the technical affluence or acumen that they now require to run all these things is also increased as well. So yeah, 100%.
All right, let's move on to headline number 3. Recently released findings from Everseen's Retail Threat Curve report indicate that cart-based loss has doubled in the past year, reaching 30% of all incidents happening at self-checkout. I'm going to read this one slowly because there's a lot of detail in this report, but it's very, very important to understand. According to the report, cart-based loss is defined as unscanned items left in the shopping cart at the end of the payment process. So while some cart-based loss is unintentional, this is huge. Everseen's analysis showed that the vast majority of cases are malicious. For example, a shopper might scan most of the items in their cart while leaving some of the expensive items like alcohol and meat unscanned in their cart. Moreover, through its analysis of over 1 billion self-checkout transactions,
important number.
Everseen also indicated that the average number of items left unscanned in the cart has increased from 1.6 to 3.8 per incident over the past year, while the average value of those items increased also from $11.10 to $22.90. Ben, this question, we're going back to you. It's also, you get to be the lucky A&M put you on the spot question recipient. Ben, A&M wants to know, they say, perhaps it's not surprising to see shrink impact of self-checkout on a steady rise. Do recent reports from retailers, A, indicate self-checkout is a failed experiment, B, suggest necessary strategic tweaks in their usage, or C, just create awareness around one financial component of an otherwise net beneficial technology? How come he gets a multiple choice question?
I know they're never nice enough to
Yeah.
us to do that, you know, like, hey, pick from these options, you know, like, I got a bone to pick with them later today. I think when we talk to them. Okay,
Ben, what's your answer?
Oh, well, do I get to just say C?
Sure. Yeah, go for it. You're done.
Just say C and then be finished.
That's it. Mic drop.
No, you actually don't.
We're gonna need you to elaborate a little bit. Fill in the text box.
Look, shrink stories. It feels like the great, you know, like hokey pokey of retail news this year. Is shrink a thing? Is it not a thing? Is it a thing? Is it not a thing?
Right.
I think we've got to. I mean, there's two questions for me in this one. One is, like, does the self-checkout business case still add up? And then the second one is, what are we doing about shrink? So if I take the first, brilliant that we've got this bit of research. Well done, Everseen. Big, massive bit of research. Actually got some, and we've got a new data point behind it. And I thought, for me, the most interesting data point was that for the average supermarket utilizing self-checkout, they estimate the loss over a year from cart-based loss to be about $100K, about $100,000 per store. And this is the number that's rapidly growing. So how does that 100,000K number affect the business case? I mean, I'm going to put aside the balance sheet bit because you've got the CapEx bit to put them in, but we're assuming that's already been done. So let's look at the P&L. You've got to balance that off against the in-store labor savings. And we're not covering that in this research. So you've got the labor savings of not having the people on a checkout. You've then got labor availability. You know, we've talked a lot about labor already. There's labor shortages. You know, there's retailers I speak to who say they're utilizing self-checkout because there are times of days when they will struggle to get enough staff to properly run the store. So it means, you know, if you're having to staff the checkout, you're not doing replan, you're not doing customer service. So you've got to build that into the case. And then you've got customer adoption. Look, for a whole bank of customers, self-checkout is just baked into their shopping habits now. So you've got a top-line sales risk if you start rowing back off this. So you can see why I'm keeping it down the sea. I guess I want to just put that 100K number into context. You know, an average supermarket will do 600K a week, so it's at $31 million a year. So 100K on that it's less than 0.5%. So I guess, I strongly think
it's not straight math
question,
to your point. It's not straight math to your point.
100%. It is absolutely one component of the financial model, but it's not the story in totality. But of course, look, shrink's a growing problem. Supermarkets run on low single-digit margins anyway, so every 0.5% margin is really hard to fought for. So it's not something to walk away from. I think shrink in totality, there's a whole number of really interesting technological solutions that we're tracking at Shoptalk that have got to be seen as part of that. So whether that is RFID and computer vision based inventory management systems, whether it's the work that's been done applying AI to cameras to try and identify bad actors, because what the research clearly shows is the problem's getting worse for people who are committing fraud at the checkout, but it's still a relatively small number. So how do you identify those people? How do you monitor robotics, security monitoring, high value? And then in a grocery environment, you're losing much more margin through fresh food wastage than you are from this. So
Right.
all the technologies involved in that space to kind of bring down that total shrink. So look, I think declaring self-checkout for failure is for me, it's not the answer. But I think we do need to continue working to see how we can reduce that shrink, because it is clearly having an effect.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that, Ben, because when I did look at the numbers, like just seeing, I mean, not that $100,000 is nothing, but it did seem like a lower number when you think about all the other impacts that this technology can have, the self-checkout can have in the other categories in the store and freeing up labor, especially when you think about like so many of these self-checkout machines were rolled out during the pandemic. And I think just weren't to the level, like the stores were rolling them out as an alternative option for people to not have to, put glass up between people. And, I think the technology is still developing. Jeff Wells of Grocery Dive just wrote a really great piece on this, which I encourage people to read too, that really goes into, like these are still something that retailers are learning from, and we need to give them the time and the space and the runway to kind of still figure out what the right components are of that self-checkout technology. But Chris, I want to hear from you here. We'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's decidedly C. I think it's like unquestionably C, because actually the cool thing for me about this report is that we actually have this data. Like this data did not exist before. And so for those that maybe aren't familiar with Everseen, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that too. The way they collect this data is they essentially use computer vision AI. They put cameras right there so they can watch the actions of people at the registers, at the self-checkout machines. And that's how they're collecting this data. And they've collected, like you said, a billion examples of seeing and watching this activity. And that's data we've never had before. And so having that data now will enable us to figure out the unlocks to make C work, right? Like that's the key thing here. And the point I would bring up too, which I think is really important, is it's not just a technological solve, whether it's computer vision, RFID, whatever. The smart approach is, how do you use the tech to notify the shopper and the sales associate when an issue has occurred and help them get on the same page without the situation escalating, right? So you can take action. You can say, hey, look, you can kind of, I think like Tom Arrighi at Kroger, who I interviewed a couple of times about this very thing. So, you can nudge them. You can say, hey, notice there's something, not correct in your basket. Let's talk about that. And there's ways to use other AI to make sure that situation doesn't escalate. So the answer to me is and it's always the case, is it always comes down to people, process, and technology working together to solve this. And that's how we make hay on the answer, which is C, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a great recap, Chris.
All right, let's take a quick break because Anna and I want to tell you about the 2024 Commerce Next Growth Show. It's happening on June 11th to 13th in New York, in the heart of commerce at the New York Hilton Midtown. There at the show, you can forge lasting connections with industry titans, gain insight from top brands, and ignite your potential with immediately actionable strategies. Scaled retailers and brands, your free ticket is waiting. Use code FAST5, that's fast space 5, and register now to learn more, connect more, and do more in the world of retail. Just head to commercenext.com/conference. That's commercenext.com/conference. And we hope to see you there. Headline number 4, Instacart wants to gamify omni-channel shopping. According to Grocery Dive, a demo of Instacart's Keeper Cart at the National Retail Federation's Big Show conference in New York City showed off the option for a consumer to spin a virtual wheel on the smart cart screen for the chance to win a prize. Oh my God, I almost can't read this with a straight face. Doing so resulted in a reward of $2 off, along with a message that said, spin for another discount next time you shop with a Keeper Cart. Exclamation point too. Using the cart's location sensors and in-store navigation maps, Vice President and General Manager of Instacart's Connected Stores, David McIntosh, said Instacart can envision giving shoppers a challenge to find and scan certain products or types of products in various aisles. Quote, ultimately, where we want to go is to take this to Pokemon Go. Or actually, let me rephrase that because I want to make sure I got that right. He said, quote, ultimately, where we want to take it is Pokemon Go, end quote. So Ben, do you believe in the concept of gamifying the in-store shopping experience as Instacart is envisioning it?
Brilliant. I'm gonna answer it with a slightly different question.
Okay.
So the first question that I would pose is, like, do you believe that there's going to be a whole wave of activity over the coming months into the next year, which is all about the digitization of the physical store? And for me, I think that's a huge yes. And why? I think it's because it's going to be funded by attempts to bring retail media offline into stores. The in-store foot traffic, the opportunity to monetize it is just too great to resist. We just had a long conversation earlier about the 0.3% margin from self-checkouts, when you could be making 25% plus margins off retail media. So therefore, you could expect to see more tests, more trials, more rollout from like a whole suite of in-store tech that will be there to try and unlock those media dollars, whilst also figuring out which ones to drive efficiency and ultimately which get customer adoption. So whether it's ESLs or in-store screens or smart carts with screens, more of this will be coming. So if you buy into that hypothesis, I do, feel free to disagree.
Yeah.
The next logical step is kind of some of these like next gen of digital approaches to demand creation will be utilized on those screens. So if advertising platforms are using things like gamification, influencer videos, short-term discounts, if those are becoming more established, then they're absolutely going to be used on an in-store environment. It's kind of wildly too early to know which of them customers are actually going to adopt. But, look, there's been some incredible numbers shared this week about the amount that Temu is spending on advertising, its growth. And as sort of that Temoification continues, gamification is a huge element of this. So, look, is this going to be the bit that sticks? I don't know. Will we see more of this? 100%, I think so.
Interesting. Yeah, those are really compelling points. Anne, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have my notes similar to what Ben said. I mean, this is something that Temu and Starbucks have been doing for ages, and it's not a new concept. It's definitely something that can get
via
people
mobile
engaged.
phone though as well. I mean,
well, that's my key point here. So I think this makes sense. The ads getting served up, like once you put things in the carts, that's great. Retail media that Ben's talking about on the cart makes sense. You better do something to pay off the carts. You better do something to get the ROI from investing in those carts. So they need to have something on there. But the key thing for this strategy to be successful is that it cannot just be on the cart. It has to be something that's omni-channel, that's on somebody's phone, that's on the cart, that's all syncing up with me as a consumer so that I can play that game. I can spin that wheel, whether I'm at home planning to head to the grocery store or I'm in the store using my Caper cart for the shopping experience. And the last thing is the Pokemon Go bit, I think is fine, but there still are no seats for the kids on these smart carts. So before you start talking about kids playing this Pokemon Go game in the grocery store, I hate to break it to you, but it's not going to be on the Caper cart.
And they can still play it on they can still play it on a mobile phone too, right? Like in theory,
mobile phone,
like you don't need a cart to gamify the situation.
No.
Yeah. So I'm going to surprise you guys a little bit on this one. I think like as a concept, gamification, I'm kind of big on it,
Yeah.
And this is something, and you might remember this. We thought a lot about this at Store of the Future at Target. It was definitely on my roadmap, but I would put it in the next category, in the next future of omni-channel store development. I wouldn't put it on the now. Going back to what we started this show with, like, where would I invest in the show me the money things now? This wouldn't be it. In general, I like gamification because, anything that allows my customers to linger in my store for longer, particularly like you said, Ann, if they have kids with them, there's a win. There's a lot of wins from being able to figure that out. But the form factor of it being on the cart, my hunch is that it's not likely there yet, and it's not likely going to be there anytime soon. So while I'm pro gamification, I wouldn't spend my money on this idea. I wouldn't get hooked on Instacart's flashy PR on this right now. I'd just be serving up, if I'm going to do the cart at all, I'd just be serving up straight coupons and discounts via the screens to first understand if the investment thesis and retail media thesis even plays out. Like this is like far-flung idea that doesn't need to happen right now, I don't believe, or go the mobile phone. Ben, what do you think?
I think back, 18 months. So Grocery Shop 22 is when Instacart launched their connected store proposition. And I remember conversations at the time around what gives Instacart a right to play in the physical store. I think by utilizing all their e-commerce knowledge, there's some really interesting stuff starting to happen. I mean, you're a colleague. Our communal friend Carter Jensen was talking about the amount of data that they are getting from the trial of retail media on the Caper Cart, just in Bristol Farms, is incredible. Now, how you activate on it and how you action it is the next thing, but it's really interesting. So you mentioned David McIntosh in the introductory piece. We're really intrigued about where this is going. So we've invited Dave to come and join us in Barcelona for Shoptalk Europe. He's going to come on stage.
Oh, wow.
So in June, so it's at 5 months' time, we're going to get a little bit of feedback about where this is all going and how is the customer responding to these new things that are being put in front of them. And I think that'll be absolutely fascinating.
Wow.
Absolutely, 100%. I
That's
can't
a
wait
good
to see
drop. Yeah, I'm excited, even more excited. All right, let's close this up with headline number 5. Guys, TikTok is trialing a new feature to make all video posts shoppable. According to Payments, using advanced technology, TikTok's new feature automatically identifies objects in a video and prompts viewers to find similar items on TikTok Shop. The new feature, now being tested, aims to address these concerns by linking products to regular users' posts without the hard sell from an influencer, and is therefore designed to provide a more enjoyable experience for visitors who primarily seek entertainment. Chris, I'm going to go to you first. What do you think of TikTok making all of your videos shoppable?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be pretty harsh on this one. I think this one is dead on arrival. DOA. I don't think I give them an A for effort and creativity, but the reason I say that, it hinges on the fact that you have to have a great product catalog. If you don't have a great product catalog, people are going to get frustrated by this experience, even if they decide to try it out. So it feels a little like putting the cart before the horse, quite honestly, to me, Anne. And also, I think the other point I would make here, I think it could be a sign that TikTok Shop isn't working and that they're doing this to goose volume. They're just like, let's open up Pandora's box on this, see if we can get people to use it and do it. But if you don't have the product catalog, it doesn't matter. So, people are already frustrated by the lack of product catalog on TikTok Shop. I don't see how this gets any better with this idea. So I don't get it. I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah, that's consistent with what Bloomberg saw too, who broke the story. I mean, they were saying that they weren't seeing the exact right products that are popping up. So that kills the experience right then and there. If, you're looking for a pair of Nike sneakers and you get like a Temu $8 pair of high tops or something.
Right. It's just so frustrating. It's so disjointed. Like, and we've heard this use case before, right? Like, hey, I'm out in the world. I can scan a pair of shoes that I want to find. And, then I can just have them delivered to my house. Like, much harder to make happen in reality to give everyone what they want in their estimation of what that experience should be. It never meets reality, at least not right now.
Yeah. Ben, where do you fall on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was going to give this an award, I'd give it an award for the most utterly predictable headline of the year, because this is obviously going to happen. Yeah, this was the logical next step. And as soon as TikTok Shop became a thing, this is where it had to end up. And I think what we know, look, TikTok is absolutely established as a key demand generating platform. It can do a fantastic job, and we're all aware of this, the Stanley Quencher type stories where business performance has been transformed by demand creation. Looking at the data, so the team at Insider Intelligence, so Yasmin Edinburgh, who's fantastic on all things to do kind of social media and commerce, has shared latest numbers that show that TikTok is well on track next year to overtake Facebook in terms of the number of minutes of content consumed by US adults, to be the number one platform. So it's where the eyeballs are. It drives demand, but my thoughts are exactly where you are, Chris. It's one thing driving the demand. It's another thing being able to satisfy that demand through your own proprietary retail operation. Retail, whether that's fulfillment, logistics, availability, vendor relationships, all that's hard. It's completely unproven at the moment. So whether this route of bringing it all inside their own marketplace is the way forward versus opening up for brands to satisfy themselves. Time will tell. But yeah, that's the question for me.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you both said. I think the only thing that I do feel like is important for the retailers and brands listening in the audience is the importance, yet again, of getting your item attributes in order and assigning as many attributes as you can to your products so that when this does get to a point, because I do think that we're going to get to a point where TikTok is going to be a bigger shopping platform for people, where YouTube will be a bigger shopping platform for people, and you need to make sure that your products are searchable based on a large number of ways that people are going to be searched them, whether that's, Gen AI search that Walmart rolled out, whether that's, finding something in a video search or in a video platform like TikTok. You need to be still focused on how you're getting a handle on, how people are discovering your product with all of these marketplaces available, whether or not this is mature enough to kind of make that happen or not. I think that's something that you do need to be investing in and focusing on, because my guess is that TikTok is using some sort of visual search platform that they've built to find and identify these things. So if your product isn't searchable or findable in that way, I think that's something that could be a challenge for you going forward.
Yeah, and the other point, and I would add too, is like, and the other piece is like, you got to control the experience, right, on these platforms, right? Like we've going back to the firework discussions we've had in the past. Like, how do you put the advertising out in such a way that if people are engaged by it, they want to shop from the post or the social media activity, that you're keeping them in the brand. Yeah, because the item data is paramount for any retail experience in today's day and age. But like, that's the next level thing, right? Is you've got to control that experience. And that's why the US market's so different than China too, still to this day.
Yep. All right, guys, let's go to the lightning round. Ben, you get all the lightning round questions, so I hope you're ready. All right.
All of them.
All right.
All
right. Ben, question number 1. DoorDash is launching a Super Bowl campaign where they will dash anything in any of the Super Bowl commercials, from electric BMWs to elf concealer to one lucky winner. What item from a Super Bowl commercial would you most like to have dashed to your door?
There is only one story in the Super Bowl, let's be honest. So if DoorDash could please deliver me Taylor Swift, that would be amazing. I would be a rock star forever. So yeah, that's a small ask if that would be okay.
Do we know that she's going to be there yet, Dan?
She is. She's going to travel back in time. She's going to travel back in time because she crosses over some, like, I don't know. She's leaving before she arrives. It's a very complex matter, but somebody is going to travel to Japan today, so that's going to track and follow her along the journey.
Well, if anyone can travel back in time, it's probably Taylor Swift. All right, Ben. Number 2, the dying mobster who stole Dorothy's ruby red slippers will not see jail time, as it turns out, because he's actually in hospice. Ben, who was your favorite Wizard of Oz character?
Oh my God. I used to love the lion.
The lion.
Brilliant. Just brilliant. Who wouldn't love a friendly lion to have around the house?
Does anyone ever say Dorothy? That's my question. But hey, that's my question.
I mean, yeah, Dorothy, obviously.
Do you? All right.
I think so. I mean, she's got those ruby slippers. She turned
everything
around.
She does. Yeah. Right.
Okay. Question number 3. We talked in a Walmart story today about store managers being offered stock options. Ben, you've spent time working for large retailers in the UK and the US. Next to stock options, what's one other perk or benefit you'd like to give store managers?
Oh, an amazing question. I think the perk that I would offer store managers is their ability at any point in time to pick any head office staff member that they wanted to come and help them in their store. So no matter what was going on, they could just have this phone call. I want this person, come and help.
Yeah.
Anybody they want, whenever they need it.
I love that.
That would be amazing.
Wow, that's really eating what you cook too. Wow, that's really good, Ben. Wow. All right, last one. A man recently completed a marathon in under 4 hours, all while smoking a cigarette the entire time. What is the most unusual thing you have ever tried to do while running?
Oh, I try and avoid running like the plague. I give me a bicycle and I'll be fine. I've tried to do bicycle runs where you drink. There's a one around us called the Belgian waffle ride, which is kind of off-road bicycles plus beer, which is great and dangerous, but I'm far preferable to running.
Wow.
Chris, what
All
have
right.
you done? What's your
Oh, my
answer to
story.
that?
My story is I was running on the treadmill and I tried to take off. Actually, I had the Shoptalk sweatshirt on. I tried to take it off while running. Not a good idea. No, just not a good idea. I almost killed myself at the Y, but yeah, that was not a smooth move. But Ben, before we get you out of here, one final question on Shoptalk. If there was one piece of advice that you have to help people get the most out of the upcoming show, what would it be?
Great question. Look, we've got 6-7 weeks to the show. Show's coming up 17th through 20th of March. The key thing is to get organized early. We will be closing the VIP registration on the 9th of February. So if you're used to coming to the show as a retail and brand, as part of the VIP hosted program, that closes 9th of February. And the meet program, there's 75,000 meetings that are taking place. The registration for that closes 24th of February. So if you leave it too late to get your ticket, come and enjoy the show, but some of these really valuable things won't be open to you. So I know it's planning diaries and making time is difficult, but a bit of time spent early will really help you maximize the value you get from your time with us in Vegas.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And remember, if you're interested, you can use our promo code OmniTalk at any time. All right. Happy birthday today to Jonathan Banks, Kerry Washington, and the man who brought sexy back, but can honestly keep it for all I care, Justin Timberlake. I'm not a fan, and as you know, not a fan at all. But remember, if you can only read or listen to one retail blog in the business, make it OmniTalk. The only retail, I know I'm going to get a lot of complaints on that one, but hey, I'm always frank and candid. We're the only retail media outlet run by two former executives from a current top 10 U.S. retailer. Our Fast Five podcast is the quickest, fastest rundown of all the week's top news, and our now daily newsletter tells you the information you need to know each day and also features special content that is exclusive to us, and we do it all just for you. And we try really hard to make it all fit within the preview pane of your inbox. Thanks as always for listening in. Please remember to like and leave us a review wherever you happen to listen to your podcast or on YouTube. You can follow us today by simply going to youtube.com/OmniTalkRetail. Ben, thank you so much for being with us today. It was an absolute pleasure. And on behalf of Ben and myself and all of us at OmniTalk Retail, as always, be careful out there.
The OmniTalk Retail Fast Five is brought to you in association with the A&M Consumer and Retail Group. The A&M Consumer and Retail Group is a management consulting firm that tackles the most complex challenges and advances its clients, people, and communities toward their maximum potential. CRG brings the experience, tools, and operator-like pragmatism to help retailers and consumer products companies be on the right side of disruption. And Avalara. Avalara makes tax compliance faster, easier, more accurate, and more reliable for 30,000 plus businesses and government customers in over 90 countries. Avalara leverages 1,200 plus signed partner integrations to power tax calculations, document management, tax return filing, and tax content access. Visit avalara.com to improve your compliance journey. And Williot. Williot's ambient IoT visibility platform, powered by battery-free Bluetooth tags, eliminates scanning for real-time end-to-end inventory visibility. For more information, head to williot.com/OmniTalk. And TGW. TGW will help you revolutionize your grocery supply chain, and their experts will tailor automation solutions to your needs, ensuring you have the edge. Work with TGW before your competition does. Discover more at tgw-group.com. And Sezzle. Sezzle is an innovative buy now, pay later solution that allows shoppers to split purchases into 4 interest-free payments over 6 weeks. To learn more, visit Sezzle.com.